Hi, welcome to the bathtub. It's the old masturbator, the Scott Bradfield. Except no substitutes. We put the I think I showed you the hey crazy dog. I showed you that we put the coconut up there. You can see Doda's butt sticking out of the coconut. She's already got herself in there. She loves those damn things. She tears them to shreds. She tears all the things to hold them up, and we keep fixing them, and then we finally say we're gonna just get a new one. She's got a new coconut. She might be kind of quiet. Lucky's being pretty good. She's lying here with us and relaxed. She's had a long walk today, and she's on some meds, some simple meds. Not that we don't go into the they don't got the Prozac. They give dogs Prozac. Did you know that? And I'll try to keep you all informed. I know a lot of people have been very interested in old Lucky, and we're doing our best for her. She's a lot of work. That's all I can tell you. She goes from just being this puppy, lovely puppy, to just looking at me like she's the craziest thing I've ever seen. She's the craziest thing I've ever seen. She's like Norman Bates, and we do our best to take care of her. Okay, and someday she'll take care of me. I'm really looking forward. I'm really looking forward to the day when Lucky's and Dodo are taking care of me in my dotage. We're going to talk briefly. We have doing a lot of quick ones here because we've been reading pointlessly as much as we possibly can with all the stuff with the dog, which is a lot of work. I got to tell you. And one of the books I read recently was part of our classical gas. Oh, we can't play classical gas anymore. That's why I don't use it, because they threatened to sue us. But we're doing the Zola, the Ruquard. Don't ever quote this guy, the Rougon Marquard series. Please don't tell me how to pronounce it. I know it's wrong. Rougon Marquard series by Zola. And as over 20, 30 years, he wrote about this family, these two families, and all the ways in French society they're kind of blossoming or maybe like weeds rooting themselves into French society and going everywhere. Anyway, this is like the 5th volume I've read. I'm not going over Lucky because she too easily gets jumped. This will show you how much I'm living with a dog. I gotta wear socks. Lucy wears these big Uggs because every once in a while she just goes apeshit and starts to bite us. So anyway, we have to keep those on. Don't be my darling. We're doing the best we can for you. And so I try not to tempt her. We try to get out for our walks and make it as pleasant as we can. That's our big achievement. Anyway, we did the first 4 volumes: The Fortune of the Rougons, His Excellency Eugenie Rougon, The Kill, and Money. Those are the first 4 in the series. He wrote them at all different times. He didn't write them sequentially. And I believe the Dream was written one of his late novels, I believe. And I'm not even looking up the date. Sorry, I don't know what I'm doing here. And I read The Dream because I wanted to get back to this series, which I do love. It's really one of the more unusual books in the series. And I think you can read it by itself. You can read all of these novels by themselves. It's interesting to read it as the 5th volume because the others, the term naturalism sort of comes out of Zola and his notion that novels were kind of research, human research into behavior and social structures and so forth. And this is almost the opposite in some ways. It's very interesting to me how writers who kind of deals with reality in his books. They're kind of steeped in detail and physicality and the period and the economics of the period. All these things that most interest Zola, and which he writes beautifully about, which he turns into wonderful stories. This is much more very much the story of the poetic inner life of an orphan, a girl who the parents I think they find her on the street when she's 7 or 8 years old, and things like their names I never know unless they say it on the back. And she, the Hugh Bears are the parents who take them on, and they what do? They do art. They create art, and they make these kind of crochet. It's not crocheting. I forget what the hell it's called. Anyway, they're creating fabrics. They're beautiful with lots of beautiful art in them. And this little girl comes to live with them, and she starts off kind of a difficult child, but she sort of quickly becomes enamored of beautiful things and wants to create beautiful things, and she becomes an important part of the family and the couple. It's about, if there's any sort of naturalistic the elements from the old books, there's a little bit about how the troubles of going through adopting children at this time in French culture was. And so eventually they bring her into their life and they make her their daughter because they don't have a daughter themselves. They're too old at this point to have them. And the story, but most of the story is this inner life of this girl who reads a book called the Golden Legend. It's like a religious book of martyrs and all the things that they did and how wonderful they all were. And it's kind of fairy tales mixed with religion. And there's long sections of the book which is just her imagining all these characters in this kind of fantastic fairy tale, religious, violent world and wanting to be like these perfect women. The women, I think St. Agnes is a very important character in it, who she wants to be like. And she eventually falls in love with a guy who's a rich kid who comes from a wealthy family who are totally wealthy bastards. And it's about their relationship. But the character of this young girl is very much kind of idealized. She's not the typical Zola character where it's just the reality of them, and there's a little cynicism about the characters, and they never quite believe these ridiculous fantasies, and they tend to be more interested in even the best characters in making money and getting a buck and marrying the right girl. Anyway, the book is filled with stuff like that. I'm just going to read a couple passages. We're trying to just read our way through these, but I would really recommend this one. It's a very odd book, and it is probably the most idealized, romanticized book of all of the. It is like Flaubert's Salammbô, which is kind of a nightmarish romantic fantasy, compared to Madame Bovary, which is a much more realistic, physical world. And this is kind of that romantic stretch for Zola, and it was very popular at the time, I guess. I'm going to read just a couple passages to give you an idea. There's some beautiful poetic writing in all of Zola, but this is the way the little girl looks at. She likes cathedrals, and she meets the boy she meets and falls in love with. Actually, I think he repairs the stained glass windows. There's a little brief description of one of the cathedrals. The cathedral was indeed a living thing. Swallows in their hundreds had built nests under the band of trefoils and in the hollows of the spirelets and pinnacles, and mobs of them were forever darting about the buttresses and piers. There were also wood pigeons from the elms of the bishop's palace, which puffed out their throats as they strolled at a very leisurely pace along the edge of the terrace. Sometimes a crow, lost high up in the blue, appearing no bigger than a fly, could be glimpsed perching on the tip of a spire, smoothing down its feathers. A great variety of plants, lichens, and grasses that grew in the cracks of walls brought life to the old stones, threading them with the mute toil of their roots. Some beautiful writing here. On days when there were heavy downpours, the whole apse awoke and began to roar as the rains lashed against the lead tiles of the roof, pouring down the channels of the galleries, tumbling from one level to the next with a noise as deafening as a raging torrent. So there's lots of beautiful passages. Again, it reminds you a little of Wiesmann, who writes these kind of beautiful passages about kind of evil things. But this is a beautiful things, the things that this little girl grows up around. One last passage, just because it's for a naturalist to write this novel. And there is a sort of miraculous occurrence in this book. There is a notion that some miracle occurs to this girl, as it does in these books she reads. And this girl's name is Angelique. Sorry, I didn't know that before. And it just gives you a little sense that how she lives her life is different from Zola's whole method, the method that he's famous for and famous for expounding and talking about. And here's just a brief passage of Angelique's version of the world. Angelique was a firm believer in miracles. In her ignorance, she found that she was continually surrounded by wonders, a star rise or the opening of a humble violet's petals. It seemed foolish to her to think of the world as a machine governed by fixed laws, that naturalistic universe of Zola. She understood so little and felt so weak and lost among powers she could barely reckon with, and she would never even have suspected that these powers existed if she had not occasionally been buffeted by the great gusts they sent forth. Anyway, the naturalistic universe told from inside this romantic sensibility of Angelique. It's very much an internalized book. Very strange, very interesting, very, very, very beautiful piece of writing. Okay, we have a very simple, when we had our old whiteboard, which has gone the way of the whole tech empire that we had built up here, this tech empire. We spent so much money on special effects, and whiteboards that we forgot the real purity of the world, and that is we have 3 ratings for it. We have yeah, we have nay, and we have hell yeah, and this is a hell yeah. Everything by Zola is a hell yeah, and most of the good books. I think it basically goes from hell yeah to nay in the world of classical gas. Classical gas, Zola, he's back. Bye.